just felt like it was a little bit rushed almost. Like, there are several typos that I remember reading. This entire book was either basically just like reworking and redoing the plot from the first book, but just from the next year's perspective. And then the other half of it was Xaden and Violet having miscommunication issues because Xaden is essentially like a loser, and he's like withholding sex from her until she will tell him that she loves him, and she's not ready to say that because he broke her trust and like didn't tell her. The big spoiler at the end of fourth, you know, like I just and the plot twist ending of this was, I'm gonna like, a pretty anticlimactic. I was just like, okay, like that's it, are we serious? I don't know, I was just bored. It's like 600 pages too, and it's far too long, far too rushed, lazy, sloppy. Just like insert that Abby Lee Miller gif.
Boring, yawning, sloppy, lazy.
And that's how I feel about this book. I'm so sorry. I do not think I will be continuing the series unless the third book somehow gets like miraculous reviews. I don't know. Second book was technically a DNF, but I read like 80% of it, so I nearly finished it. It is Hate, which is the first book in the Madison Gate series by Tate James. This is the first book in like a 4 or 5 book reverse harem bully romance series. So it's about Madison Gate. Honestly, I'm not sure how to describe it, okay? But I'm gonna read the back and then I'll tell you why I DNF'd it, okay? Madison Gate Danvers was murdered tonight. Those words changed my life, but not for the better. They were wrong, of course. I wasn't dead, but I was set up after being charged with a string of offenses and made an example of by my political-minded father. I'm eventually released back into Shadow Grove with one thing on my mind: hate. Someone is going to pay for derailing my carefully laid out future. Someone is going to catch the full force of my hate. How very convenient that someone just moved into the bedroom down the hall from me. Archer Diaz and his boys messed with the wrong chick, and they're about to learn just how cold Madison Gate's hate can run. So yeah, I was expecting like a fun reverse harem bully romance, and like the whole, someone like framed that she died, but it was like framed her. Like I thought that was gonna be so interesting, okay? And then I ended up DNFing it because that is not at all what we got. They were just all flirting with each other like immediately off the bat. There was no hate going on. Like they were all just attracted to each other, and it was all very obvious. It was like insta lust. So not only did I not enjoy the insta lust, the actual like revenge, hate, murder, mystery like plot was pretty much non-existent. Like the revenge that she ends up getting on these guys is she puts salt in their coffee instead of sugar, and she like photoshops a picture where it looks like they're all like hooking up and sends it around school. Like that's, and I'm just like, it's so petty and childish. And for a book called Hate, I just like expected something a little bit more like angsty, and so yeah, I ended up DNFing it because it just was not giving what it needed to give. I wanted a fun bully romance, and it just wasn't for me. Let me know if you think I should continue and read the second book, if it like gets better, but I don't know. I just say that because I do have the second book, so I'm like debating, but okay. The third book that I read, so after that I was like still wanting this one follows Wit and Summer, I think. Wit and Summer. They had met briefly when they were like 13, 14 and had like an interaction. And so eventually she ends up transferring to his school and he starts kind of making her life a living hell. This is definitely like actual bullying, you know, like where the last book was kind of like boring. There was like actual bullying going on between the two of them, and I did like their dynamic, and I thought that the spice was good, but honestly, this was just like all spice, no plot. Like there was no plot going on. No, there was no like rich people drama that was like interesting enough. Like it was literally just like Wit and Summer being repressed, horny teenagers, and like it was fine, but like far too long to be an all spice book. Like can we do something else? Like there's no reason why 90% of this needed to be spice. So yeah, I don't know, it didn't do it for me. I think I gave it 2 stars. So, but if you like really, really spicy and you like a bully romance, high school new adult, you might be into that. But yeah, neither of the bully romances that I tried were giving me what I needed. So then I was like, fuck it, we're just gonna switch gears and read something completely different. So I finally got some discipline and I sat down and I finished the brick that is Queen of Shadows by Sarah J. Maas. I get comments probably all, like more than any other book series of people asking me like, are you reading Throne of Glass? Like when are you gonna finish Throne of Glass? Da, 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 da. So yeah, I think this is like the 5th book or something in the series. I don't know. I'm still reading the series, guys. It just, this book specifically, for some reason, took me 2 months to read. But I annotated the fuck out of it. Like I really went in. So honestly, I feel like I'm kind of glad that I took my time with it. And I'll probably do the same thing with the tandem read. I'm gonna do the tandem read next, where you read Tower of Dawn and Empire of Storms at the same time. Like, there's a certain, like, you know, order. Anyway, I won't bore you, but I did read Queen of Shadows, and this is definitely my favorite book so far in the Throne of Glass series. Definitely the best one. Just, oh my god, the character development we got in this book. You know me, I'm a character-based reader. I love good characters, and this series has some of my favorite Sarah J. Maas characters specifically. We have Rowan, Manon, Aelin, like, there's just so many, Dorian, oh my god, how could I forget? Just so many great characters, and all of those characters had immense growth or change in this book at some point, and the romance, like 1 or 2 of like the big romances kind of got a lot more development in this, and even though there was so many point of views, I was never bored, and yeah, it just, I've like really not been in the mood for fantasy. I enjoyed every page, but like it just took me a long time to get through, but I still rated it 4.5 stars, so second highest book that I rated this month. So yeah, I loved it, and whenever I get that fantasy itch again, I will definitely get this was my book club pick of the month. I do have a book club in my Discord server, and this is a YA mystery thriller about a girl named Donis, who is a senior in high school, or maybe a junior, but she's like, you know, towards the end of her high school years, and a few people in her class and her uncle end up dying, and a lot of it has to do with meth and drugs. And then this boy, Jamie, transfers to her school. They become close, and Donis starts to kind of like work together with Jamie to figure out what's going on. And yeah, most of the people in my book club loved it and gave it like a 4 or 5 star. For me, I was really, really enjoying it for the first like 50%, and then towards the end you find something out about Jamie, and once that reveal happened, I didn't really care for the romance anymore between like Donis and Jamie, and I felt like we focused a little too much time on it. But the actual like thriller and mystery was interesting, and I loved hearing about Donis's culture and her family life, and it was great. So yeah, a really nice read for Native American History Month. But I gave it 3 stars. I gave it 3 stars just because towards the end I had to kind of like push myself to finish it. But next, I read another thriller, and this saved the month for me because it is my one and only 5-star read of November. It is Bright Young Women by Jessica Knoll. I was gonna tap on it, but the hardcover doesn't sound very good. So, going into this book, knew nothing about it. I just saw the cover like everywhere, and I picked it up because I liked the title, I liked the cover. I knew it was a thriller because I had heard of Jessica Knoll and her other books, but I had never read them. And then about 2 chapters in, I realized that this is definitely inspired by a true crime case that I'm very familiar with, because part of it actually happened in Utah and it's talked about in the book. I don't want to like spoil anything. I think you should go into it blind, but you'll likely know. But the book follows a woman named Pamela, who's a sorority girl, and a few of her sorority sisters, including her best friend Denise, get murdered by this serial killer. There is a quote that I'm going to read because I feel like it just describes kind of the book's mission statement better than I ever could. Throughout the book, the author only refers to the killer as the defendant because it talks about like the court case and everything. So, yeah. The defendant peered back at me with vacant eyes. They're scary eyes, don't get me wrong, but what frightens me, what infuriates me, is that there isn't anything exceptionally clever going on behind them. A series of national ineptitudes and a parsimonious attitude towards crimes against women created a kind of secret tunnel through which a college dropout with severe emotional disturbances moved with impunity for the better part of the 70s. Law enforcement would rather we remember a dull man as brilliant than take a good hard look at the role that they played in this absolute sideshow. And I am sick to death of watching them in hugely successful and critically acclaimed crime documentaries, talking about the intelligence and charm of an ordinary misogynist. This story is not that. The story is not that. So yeah, again, a thriller, but also kind of 50% true crime as well. It's like half inspired by real events and then half fiction. So interesting, and I think Jessica Knoll handled this case and this story so well, and this book made me cry. great take on this case. And now anytime anyone ever mentions that particular grimy, nasty little man, I will just refer them to this book because brilliantly done. Loved it. And lastly, I finished off the month with this tiny, tiny, tiny little short story from one of my favorite thriller writers, Gillian Flynn, the author of Gone Girl, Gone Girl. You do not need me to promote anymore because I talk about it all the damn time, but yeah, I never read this and it was on my November TBR, so I picked it up. I actually read it today in one sitting. It is like 60-70 pages or something. It's really short. But this is The Grown-Up, and it is Gillian Flynn's take on a ghost story, as you can tell by the back. I believe this was originally published in like a George R.R. Martin collection. Yes, a George R.R. Martin collection, and then she eventually published it on its own as a standalone. So I did not read the George R.R. Martin collection. I just read this on its own. This story has it's tiny, but it's mighty, and it has, I think, probably like the best first line of a book that I've come across all year. So again, I'm gonna read it to you. Sorry, this will be my last reading aloud moment, but I just have to share, okay? I didn't stop giving hand jobs because I wasn't good at it. I stopped giving hand jobs because I was the best at it. This follows a woman who, I actually don't remember the main woman's name, but she works at a like psychic medium, tarot card reading kind of business. And one day this woman named Susan comes into her workplace and gets like a psychic reading and is asking for help about her stepson, Miles. And that's all I'm gonna say. I don't really want to give away anything. But yeah, Gillian Flynn has such a distinct, quirky, and like gritty writing style that I really, really enjoy. I enjoy anything that she writes, and this was no different. Like, I normally am not someone that gravitates toward ghost stories, but the first like